Hey listener, welcome to 1000 Routes. I'm your host, Nick Bennett. In each episode, we explore the uncommon paths of solopreneurs who have bet on themselves and the reality of what it takes to build a business that serves your life. And if you want to change your own route, you can check out Full Stack Solopreneur, our 90-day group coaching program that has helped dozens build clear, compelling offers that you can market and sell with confidence. You can join now at fullstacksolo.com. That's fullstack, SOLO.com. Enjoy the episode. I know the story of you at Challenger and then ending up at Chief Evangelist and how all that goes. Then your time at Lavender, you end up wrapping up your time at Lavender, going out on your own. I watched that whole thing unfold and I was like, this is only a matter of time until she goes solo.
Yeah.
And I was like, it was a big plot, honestly, for me to have you on the show. I feel like that was really what it was all about many years ago, before this show ever existed.
Yes, it all adds up.
That was it. You just had to get on the show somehow.
Mm-hmm.
But what was the turning point for you? Like, walk me through the moment when you decided, let's move on from Lavender and go all in on DemandJen.
Well, when I left Challenger, I left thinking I'm going to start DemandJen. I'm going to make this like keynote speaking business. I left the first week of December in 2022. And then I made the announcement that I was leaving. And then Will Allred reached out and he was like, hey, we've got this really interesting idea for a position. He's like, I know you were doing this evangelist thing. We're thinking about like what different ways we might start a community here. And we'd love for you to come in and like figure that out. And so I was like, well, they're like, I loved Lavender. I thought it was such a cool idea of like having data to drive something that was such a subjective thing, which is how do you write a good cold email? And so I was like, I don't know if I really want to break into tech and I don't have tech experience. Is that a bad thing? So I like waffled back and forth. And then I just was like, why don't I just do it? But then the whole time I was there, I was kind of just like two things. One, I was like, I'm working so hard. It's just the same thing I did for Challenger, way harder than anyone's asking me to work for them. Like, what if I could just apply all of that to my own business? Like, I'm so willing to work my ass off for someone else. Why do I feel like so insecure that I'm not going to do well? And then the second thing was I just felt like I started getting a lot of inbound of people being like, hey, we'd love for you to come and talk to our team. And I'm like, I never make $1 off of that because I just do it by virtue of being an employee of a company. What if I could monetize it? So it was really like I chickened out at first. Then it felt like it was just nagging at me and I finally just wanted to do it.
You said you felt insecure about some of the things. What were some of those? What were some of those things?
The biggest one was I had spent basically 18 years with the same company. Now it looks like 3 different companies because of it was acquired by an organization and then private equity bought our division. And so it looks like I was at 3 stops. I really wasn't. There were people I worked with that entire time. And so when I was leaving, I was ready to go, but I had all sorts of head trash around like, was I only successful because I worked for a brand that had a decent reputation? Like Challenger, for those that know, it was about like a research study of sellers. It was a best-selling book. It had, some people that hated it, a lot of people that loved it. And so when I was leaving, I'm like, well, what if the only reason people think that I'm good or I'm smart is because I'm aligned with this company and I'm just sharing that stuff? Like, is my individual knowledge or my individual tactics enough on their own to make someone say, like, we want to work with you, not you meeting Challenger?
Well, I mean, I've heard you talk about Challenger's challenge, which was everyone liked the book. People would buy the book. They'd give it to their teams. And they're like, great, we're challengers now. Where in reality, you were trying to sell a thing that no one necessarily wanted. So like all of those businesses face, any business is going to face some sort of challenge. I mean, even Devin Reed, I had him on recently, and he brought up a similar kind of limiting belief which was, am I a one-hit wonder? Like, is it only like, can I do it again? And is this repeatable? And I think we all face that. How did you work through that?
I think it like I said, I took another job because the insecurity beat out the confidence. And then I just found myself having the same conversation with my husband and then a really dear friend, Amy Volas, where I was like, I wish I had more time to do this and I wish I could go do this. And then both of them, I think, were consistent in what they were saying, which is the only thing standing in your way is you're too much of a wuss just to do it. And I was like, well, it's a little bit more complicated than that. And they're like, is it though?
You're like, I need money.
And to be fair, like I don't know about you, but like that was terrifying to feel like all of a sudden you're paying for your own medical insurance, your health insurance. You might think you're going to have a strong start, but what if you don't? Or what if it's a short burst and then it tails off really quickly? I don't think that kind of thinking really has ever gone away from me. Like even today, now I'm like, well, AI is going to take everything over and no one's going to need a sales trainer anymore. And like, what am I even doing? And what am I going to do? And is it 6 months? Is it 12 months? And like, I think that you just always, or at least I always have this feeling where it's all going to come crashing down in a very short window of time. Even though there's a lot of evidence to contradict it, I think it's hard not to pay attention to that.
Well, we get stuck in our LinkedIn little bubble. And I love it. You posted this video recently, and I think about it like once a week with that AI. You're like, can you just stop? Just give it a rest. Like, so yeah, you get stuck in there. And that like caricature of the LinkedIn person talking about AI is so very real because out here in reality, everyone is just trying to do some good work. And it's not the death spiral that LinkedIn makes it seem like it's going to be.
You are so spot on. It's one of the things. So I only do workshops to train sales teams. Like I don't have a playbook. I don't have a course. I don't have any of that. And there's pros and cons to that. But it does mean that I'm out on the road a lot. And I think without that mechanism to realize like, okay, LinkedIn talks about AI, that if you aren't a savant at it, you're a total moron and you're going to fail and you're an idiot. But then you get out into the real world and it's like, actually very few organizations are anywhere near, like half of them don't even have a login to ChatGPT or Gemini. Or
they don't even know what it is. They're like,
right. And I'm like, hold on a second. I'm not such a moron. And so I think one of the things I'm grateful of is just getting out there because I spend way too much time on LinkedIn and it's easy to let that become your little bubble of what the world is.
Well, it sucks because on one hand, you need LinkedIn to juice the pipeline and do the thing that LinkedIn's really, really good at. I think there are a lot of us that have a business and I've met some of my favorite people. Like I have a business partner in Erica because of LinkedIn. There's so much wonderful stuff. And then on the other hand, you're like, this is the worst party ever. And I just want to go home.
Can I call my mom? I want to go.
Like, please, someone pick me up. Please.
It's true. I took a week off a couple weeks ago when we took our kids down to spring break in Florida. And then I came back and I was like immediately triggered getting back on it. And one of my friends was like, why don't you just start unfollowing the people that drive you nuts?
They pay the bills.
I know. But I did. I was like, all the people that do say the things that really get under my skin, I just started unfollowing them. It is a miracle how much of a difference it makes for something so stupid and easy. Like being on LinkedIn is not so insufferable because it makes me feel like I've got more control over it. And I think I also, because I'm a sicko, was probably seeking it out, right? Like if you look at someone's profile, like post a bunch, it's going to fire in your feed. So I was like, I'm kind of doing this to myself. Like,
yeah, like I'm hate reading all this stuff about ChatGPT and how bad I am at prompting it. Like other people out here building billion-dollar businesses with ChatGPT, and I'm just like, why can't it just like, I just wanted to correct my grammar or something so absolutely stupid.
Yeah.
So you do keynotes, kickoffs, workshops. How did you decide on that model? I think a lot of, especially in the consulting and coaching space, it would be easy to say, hire me on a monthly retainer type of thing. I'll train your sales team. I'll get them to do all the things. And instead you went with that route. How did you decide on that model and how that works for you?
I decided on it because it was what I was familiar with. So my last year at Challenger, I kept a bag. Like I was still a seller, but I was also this chief evangelist role. And in doing that, a lot of companies started inviting me to their kickoffs to be like, hey, we want to set the vision for what we're going to do with Challenger, or we're not sure we want to do Challenger, but we want to like see how the organization reacts to it. And so what I really liked about it was, one, they're often a lot of fun. Like people are generally in a good mood. It's like, There's a lot of energy behind it. And I like to spend my time in joyful places. As silly as that sounds, like I'd much rather do that.
Nothing silly about that.
And then the second part was I did like that there was a seasonality to it. So when I left Lavender, that was early September. And I was like, this is early enough where people are still early in planning. That year was a weird year because it was like the first year people were kind of like coming out of COVID being like, I think we're going to come back together again. So I wasn't too late to get in. And so it gave me confidence to know if there's something with seasonality, it naturally drives some urgency to decisions. So I could probably book some stuff pretty early on and like feel good about, paying for my health insurance. The workshop stuff came later because I was primarily just doing like 1 hour keynotes. And then the way it happened was strange. I had an old coworker from CEB who was like, hey, we want to bring you in and, do like a 2 hour workshop. And I was like, oh, that's easy. Like I can do an exercise on the back end of it. And then he actually left after the contract was signed. And the new leader didn't read everything correctly and was like, well, I've booked you for 4 hours. And I was like, okay, I've never done anything for 4 hours. This might be problematic. But I was going back and forth. I'm like, do I like hold firm on the contract? It was a logo that was kind of interesting to me. And then I was like, why don't I just build out a 4 hour thing? And then I can just try it. And if it works well, he knows he's asking for more than the contract. I feel like he'll kind of give me some leeway. And it ended up being, I'm really glad I said yes to it because even though I didn't get paid what I should have got for a 4 hour workshop, it taught me that it's so much more fun for me to be in an interactive place where I can see people applying what I taught them versus just standing on a stage being like, here's what I think you should do. And then leaving and then having be like, I don't know, was anyone awake?
Good luck.
Very well. So after that, then I actually intentionally was like, if someone came to me about a SKO kickoff, I was like, why don't we consider doing a workshop? It's more work, but it's more rewarding. So
you said a while ago, I saw a post about this, and I'm sure you've written about it since, but you post a lot and it was hard. I doom scrolled your feed for, 40 minutes and I still couldn't find it.
Oh no.
That was my commitment to the research was there, but I couldn't find it. Josh Braun said something to you. And he basically, I think he called you out on the type of content that you were creating. And that was a major inflection point for you. Like I'm going to summarize this, but I want you to tell me it. But it's like, basically, I feel like he called you out and he was like, these are just your shower thoughts. I think you're better than that. What did he say to you that was so motivating and what was so motivating about it? Like, I feel like that was a huge turning point for you. What happened there?
It was. So this was in 2020. I had started taking posting a little bit more seriously in 2019, but my reservation was, well, I've never been a CRO. I've never been a CEO. I'm just a salesperson. If I post what I think or what I do, trolls are going to come for me and everyone's going to tell me how stupid I am. So I was posting at that time just really safe stuff. Like I worked for a company that did a ton of research. You can't really argue with research. So I'd be like, here's our finding on this. And Josh, who is someone I had been like engaging with all his content because I just thought he was such a good storyteller, so good at sales. He DMs me and he goes, hey, can I call you really quickly? And I was like, oh my God, like I'm not one for an impromptu call. Like, I'm not prepared.
It's like, it's like your parent was like, or the principal, you get called to the principal's office.
So the principal called, or I called him. He's like, here's my number. And he goes, listen, I've seen you interact with my stuff. Like I've started to see your stuff more on my feed. And he's like, let me just start by saying you post very smart things. And I'm thinking it's a compliment. I was like, well, thank you. And he goes, but you never share any sort of opinion on what you think about it. He's like, you are playing it so safe. You're posting stuff that you know people can't argue with. And he's like, and then I look at your LinkedIn history and you've got, at that time, it was probably like 16 years of being a seller. Why don't you have an opinion on anything? And I was like, oh.
Ouch.
I was like, oh my God. Well, if I'm being honest, it's because I'm scared someone's going to tell me I'm stupid or I'm wrong or whatever. And he's like, but how you write makes it like it dictates whether people say that. So if you write, I'm an expert on selling because I've been a salesperson for 16 years, you're begging for an objection to that. Like if you write, here's how I did something and how it worked for me. One, you don't run that risk of speaking in a tonality that you think is icky, Jen. But two, you also probably give people what they really want, which is not the stat. It's like, what do I do with the stat? And so when he phrased it like that, I was like, oh gosh. And he's like, what do you like about my content? And I'm like, well, I like that you're a great storyteller. He's like, so why don't you tell a story? And so the next day, I actually wrote a post that was totally outside of my comfort zone. And it was the best post that I had ever done up until that point. And so I think like the combination of it being someone I really respected and trusted, who gave me tough love, and I'm a big tough love person, but also like an immediate win on the back end certainly didn't hurt.
Yeah. Well, why do you think he took an interest in you, in what you were doing? Like, I feel like he's a relatively well-known name in the sales space, and he DMs you and he's like, you need to call me right now. Like, what do you think it was that he saw in you to decide, like, he doesn't just call anybody?
But you know what? I feel like I've met, so he's an example of one. Morgan Ingram is an example of another one. Sam McKenna, people that in my eyes, when I was a seller, I'm like, I idolized, and I thought, they're so big and the super celebrity status. And it's really interesting. One of the common threads between all of them is I feel like they never get too big or too proud to see like who's a new and up and coming voice. Like, what are other people writing? And then they get really curious to be like, why do you write like that? And what do you do? And how is that working? And so I think it was really interesting. It was the same situation. Morgan Ingram did the same thing. He's like, hey, can you call me? And I'm like, I'm not ready.
The vice principal.
Yeah. Sam McKenna was like, hey, I saw you went off on your own. I'd like to take you out to dinner. I'm like, what does she want? And it was just people that I think recognize. I think all three of them have this common theme where they know how hard it was for them to start and what they went through. And they don't do it for clout. They don't do it for praise. Like, I think they just are genuinely nice people that like see well-intentioned people and are like, let me give them a helping hand, which I thought was actually really cool.
Yeah, that's super cool. And it's super motivating. It's easy to feel like some people, especially with the higher follower count, are very unapproachable.
Yeah.
And I mean, I told myself a story, like when I first created this show, I'm gonna tell you, this is a true story.
Good.
You do a thing and you're like, all right, who do I want to have on this show? Mm-hmm. Create a list of people who are so on. I was like, Jen Allen, I'm gonna get Jen on the show. And that was a year ago.
What took you
so long? It
was
was a year ago. And I was like, I want to get to a point like, and then I feel like there's going to be a point where I'm like, this is going to be a good interview. And then I messaged you and I think you responded. I like sent a message and I like turned around to like, you turn around, I turned back and you had already responded. I was like, what happened? This is amazing. This is incredible. I was like, you're just a real person. And you forget.
You're discounting that you are awesome. And I love seeing you in my feed. And I was like, I think sometimes we just think so much about the other person. We forget that the other person is also thinking about us. I was like, that sounds like a really fun use of my time. I'd love to talk to him. So it wasn't like me being like, let me join this poor man's podcast. It's not a pity invite.
You just let me throw this random man a bone. Like every 6 months I do a pro bono. I just donate to charity, and that's what this is. But seriously, so this idea though that people are super unapproachable, like, it's a story we've told ourselves, and oftentimes people are they miss a lot of shots because they're just not taking them. Period. Like I remember you had shared. So when I first went out on my own, were sharing a bunch of templates. Not that was a thing at the time, but you had shared a template and I was like, this is super useful. And I messaged you, I was like, this is really helpful. Thanks. Like it made me, like the stuff you've posted on LinkedIn has made me a bunch of money. And then a few weeks later, I'd asked for something and you had gone deep into the archives. Like you went like several years back and you were like, here's a thing I posted about this question you're asking. And it's like, oh, like, yes, normal human people doing normal human people things. Like if you just show up and just be a genuine person, because we're so used to other people having some sort of agenda or trying to pitch slap you with stuff. Yeah. We're so turned off, especially on LinkedIn. It's like way too easy to get turned off and automatically feel like have your guard up or have your shield up when you get a DM from someone, you're like, this is going to go the wrong direction. So showing up frequently has more benefits than just being like, oh, how much reach can I get? How many 100%. Impressions can I get?
And I also think it's why I always come back to writing. In LinkedIn, in a DM, it's just your writing, right? There's nothing else. It's just purely on your writing. And I think you can tell on a message if someone is sincerely trying to piece something together or trying to learn. And if someone has actually taken the time to like, what can I figure out on my own? And I'm at a dead end and now I'm coming to you. I'm sure you get this too. There's a range of, one is like, hey, I'd love to pick your brain over coffee. And it's like, okay, I'm a weird introvert and I don't want to do that because that makes me uncomfortable. And I also have like a family and all these dogs and all these things. Like, it's not where I'm going to spend my time. And then you get people on the other end of the spectrum who are like, hey, I was like, that interview I did with Devin Reed was probably one of the best things I've done since I went off on my own. I'm super grateful he had me on there. I have people that would like watch that and be like, hey, on minute 20, you talked about this and you referenced this one thing you do. Like, do you have anything on that? Because I've looked to see if I can find anything and I can't. And I'm like, dude, who walks away from that? That's so genuine. And I think it has a lot to do also with how we grew up in our careers. Like, I was so freaking lucky to work at a company where everybody helped each other. And so I didn't grow up in this cutthroat sales culture where it's like, oh, you don't know how to do that? Like, you're going to get fired this month. And so I think bye. So I think that also bleeds into the way that you treat LinkedIn, because LinkedIn is just basically kind of a water cooler, just with a few more weirdos.
Just a few.
Just a few.
What surprises you the most about being out on your own now?
I'm going to say two things, one positive, one negative. On the negative side, I thought the reason I always worked so hard was because of the companies I was working for. Like, I was like, well, it's just, so much work needs to be done and I need to be the one to do it, right? And I thought it was about the company. But then I went off on my own and my husband actually called me out. He was like, you just sit in front of the computer all day. Like, I think you are just ingrained in this like mindset where you have to be in front of your computer or you're not working. And it still to this day, I struggle with it sometimes because there's like a guilt factor of, oh, if I just get up and leave and take a walk, like, should I be sitting in front of my computer? Like, that I think has been a negative because it's so hard to break that. And who am I doing it for? I'm my own boss. There's no one to report to. Like, it's just, to me, it's my own sort of bad behavior. So that's a negative. On the positive, I think I've been so pleasantly surprised with how many people genuinely want to help. Like, whether it's, hey, I was following your stuff and I'd love to bring up the idea of you coming in and training our team. How can I do that? Like, I was really blown away because I think sometimes LinkedIn, you put a lot of stuff out there and you don't know if anybody's like using it or not. You get comments and engagement, but you're like, okay, is it 20 people? Is it 200 people? And then when I went off on my own, it was so many people being like, I'm so proud of you. Like, you could totally do this. And we're excited to see you do it. And I was just like, man, you don't get that until you make the announcement. And if you could have a little fortune teller that was like, see what it's like when you announce, I think a lot more people would not fall into the same trap I did, which is like, let your head trash prevent you from doing it. But the problem is you got to do it to kind of get that feedback.
Yeah, I mean, we all have limiting beliefs no matter what level of success we achieve. And I think that the struggle is, like, I know a lot of people who start posting on LinkedIn the day they go out on their own. They're like, man, welcome to, like, here I am, I'm doing this thing and let's get going. And they don't have the warm welcome. And it's tough. Like, you had the foresight to say, it's like, I'm going to just start trying to do this thing. There's a lot of value in building an audience. And it's easy to look at it now and go, well, Jen's got 85,000 followers. So, like, no duh, people are excited. But it's like, yeah, well, it didn't just like, she didn't wave a magic wand either, though. You said you started taking LinkedIn more seriously in 2020. And so, I mean, that's a long time to work on something with seemingly no purpose. Not like, it's like I don't think you did it and you were like, one day, no, I'm going to be a business owner.
Never thought I would do that. Ever. I thought I would die carrying a quota for somebody else. I was like, I'm going to be a salesperson forever. People are going to feel bad for me when I'm 80 and carrying a quota.
You're like, oh, okay, good job, Jen. I mean, hey, sales is we're all in sales. Everyone's in sales. Your dentist is in sales. Like, every single person you know is in sales. Just some people know it and some people don't. Some people don't.
Ooh, I like that quote.
I mean, I started my career in sales too, and it was definitely the greatest decision I've ever made, because that as your foundation of how to operate, laying everything on top of that was super easy. I see a lot of people who were career marketers. They go out on their own, and the first thing they tell me is the hardest part about being a solopreneur is, I just learned that I have to sell stuff. And that's really hard. And they all say the same thing. They go, I have a lot more. I used to give my sales team a lot of shit. And I called them all up and said I was sorry. Because it's a lot harder.
Yes. The fact that coming off of a sales career where you face so much rejection all the time and rejection sort of becomes normal, even though like I've talked about, I still had a ton of insecurity about going off my own. It wasn't like I haven't been through pits where it's just like rejection after rejection. So even though I was still worried about it, I was like, I have been through it. Like I've had bad quarters where I totally shit the bed, and then I've come out the other side and been okay after it. So I know I can get through it if I can get enough initial interest in people who are like, oh yeah, I see what you do and why you're doing it.
Yeah, well, they think instead of shitting the bed, they think some people shit gold, and it's like you're just crushing quota nonstop, and it's like, look, like this is just part of the job. Like getting rejected is the job, and going out on your own and realizing that you're going to get rejected a lot, and trying to figure out how do you run a sales play. Like I was pretty rusty when I went on my own. And that's when I saw some of the stuff that you shared. And I was like, this is for tech companies and all that stuff. But like, this definitely works for me.
Yeah.
I'm going to figure out how to make this work because this is a good idea. This is a really good idea.
Thanks.
So you wrap up your time with Lavender. You decide to go all in on this thing. What I would love to understand is, and we alluded to this one earlier, it's like the I'm going to call it the meme side of your content. You make fun of Will 18 all the time and Kyle Assay all the time. Like did that happen organically? I know you worked with Will.
So the Will Aiken one was easy because we worked together. I had interviewed both Kyle and Will when I was still at Challenger for the Winning the Challenger Sale podcast. And both of their episodes were outstanding, like absolutely outstanding. And so I respected both of them right off the bat. And I grew up, like I've talked about tough love a couple of times. Like I grew up in a family where like we always ratted on each other. And if you actually care about someone, like you give them a hard time. And so I never pick on anyone that I actually truly don't like. So I worked with Will. I started at Lavender and then convinced him to come over. He came over, and then it was just, it was a small startup. So we'd get in these Slack huddles and it would just be me and him picking on each other. Cause like Will was always late to a meeting. I never knew how to turn on my camera or like anything techie. I was like, I need someone to explain it to me. So we became really easy fodder for one another. And our marketing team was like the best. It was Chelsea Castle and him and Todd Klauser and Raina. It was just awesome. So we had a ton of fun. Then when I left, we were doing this series, Will versus Jen, which obviously fed majorly into it.
Yeah.
And we were doing these competitions and it was really fun. When I left, I lost one of the competitions. And so he made me post a post that he wrote about why I was leaving Lavender. And it was basically, I had to write that like, I just realized Will is so much smarter and I'm never going to be as effective as him. So I can't work in this atmosphere anymore. And then all these people took it seriously. And they were like, it's so humble of you to acknowledge that. And I was like, oh my God. No. I had to do an edit later. I'm like, this was a joke. So it was like, it just became fun. And honestly, LinkedIn, I think sometimes, I'm sure you see this too, right? It's just everybody always bragging about everything good they do and how much they closed and whatever. And I was like, I just think it would be a little bit more fun if there was a little bit of Twitter energy here of like, let's just kind of rag on each other instead of just constantly humble bragging everything. With Kyle, it was because it was at the time when Grove Cookie Company was like kind of blowing up on LinkedIn. He was complaining that no one ever sent him cookies. So I had just gotten a box of cookies that day. So I just did a video, like thought nothing of it and was like, oh, look, Kyle, I got cookies and you don't. And then he just ran with it. And Kyle, even though he is like actually successful and actually very introverted, he is one of the wittiest people I know. And so it just became a way for me to have more fun on LinkedIn. And I think like also just keep me from getting sucked into like the comparison game. It's really easy when someone is constantly putting you down every day to remember your place.
I love it because one, it's very obviously a real fake feud. Yeah. And it's just like, it's just good comedy. It's just good entertainment. But then there's the other side of LinkedIn that is fake real feuds. And you're like, I know that all you people have hired the same ghostwriter and this ghostwriter is just arguing with himself across all these accounts on behalf of these people to like just stir the pot. So I love a good fake real feud, but
I'll
real
tell
fake
you
ones,
what,
get out of here.
I know exactly what you're talking about, and that's part of my unfollow camp. Like, I do not like this trend of people actually just putting everybody down, either genuinely or I don't know what it is, but it's like
It's
that to me
bizarre.
feels very, very different. I mean, gosh, I'm sure some people think that's what I'm doing, and that's their right to, but I'm honestly just doing it to have some fun. Keep it
I
like,
don't know. Will has that like those stickers in his iPhone that he's always screenshotting of the faces of Jen. I'm telling you, Will's. I gotta get Will on the show and hear his side of this.
I
He's
mean,
cracks me up.
he is hilarious, and that was like the thing I missed most when I left Lavender, was just like having that camaraderie. That was like, I don't know about you, but like I totally did not think through what's it like to truly, because I'm a bit of a lone wolf, but like I still like having a team I enjoy being with. And I've been really lucky in my career to work on teams where I really liked the people. And so when I left Lavender, I was like, oh man, it's kind of like you graduate high school and now you're in the parking lot and everyone's like, why are you here?
Yeah, like go. Like you're like, I have a license. They're like, just no, we'll get one soon. How have you filled that gap since leaving?
I don't know that I have, honestly. Like we still have a WhatsApp group, so we all keep in touch. I made my husband move into this room and work with me. So he's my coworker.
Nice. And the dog. The dog is a good
The dogs,
coworker.
got plenty of dogs. Probably too much in the dog.
Your
camp.
fiddlehead is definitely
Fake. It's fake. Okay.
and well dusted.
Well dusted. But then I think Chicago's nice because there's plenty of events and communities and things like that. So I can kind of, get out of my hole. But I don't know that I've done a great job with it.
I think that's the hardest part of going out on your own is realizing very quickly that you are alone. Like there's something about having people on Slack that you can vent to immediately. And then you realize like there is no Slack.
It's just your name.
It's just me. It's just me in the general chat, just me. And it posting gifts to myself. Like there's no one. You don't have anyone. That's a sobering like reality where it's like you're like, this is really exciting. And you come off this high of feeling like, okay, like I can really do this thing. But then you're like, okay, how do I work through this idea now? And it took me a while, and I'm curious how you go through this yourself. Like it took me a while to find a core group of people that I could catch up with on a regular basis to help each other work through some stuff, like to find basically your new set of coworkers. Because otherwise, one, the normal you have, and that was really the genesis of this show, which was like, is this normal? Am I crazy?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what's happening here. And it's probably both. Like it's probably both of those things are true, but how have you worked through some of those things?
Well, first of all, I want to say like what you and Erica have together, I think is so cool. I watched, there was a post you did today where you guys like, we're both in the same room. It was a video of like records. And I was like, you could just tell you're having so much fun. And I think that's why I'm so drawn to you and Erica is like, you just don't seem to take yourselves too seriously. I don't think less of you, like, oh, you don't take your job seriously. I just think you keep it in perspective well. And I think even watching stuff like that is good for me because you feel a sense of connection to people that, you think are kind of like similar to you in a way. So I wanted to say that.
Well, thank you. Erica's really good at that, by the way. Like it's not intuitive for me to share that side. I mean, I'm very much like very binary with this. It's like, just tell people about the problem, just market the problem and don't do anything else. Like but Erica's really good at showing that like, hey, there's real humans in here too,
And that's a yin and yang situation, I think is what you need.
Yeah, for sure.
I think over time it's become like, I've got 3 different like group chats and that four group chats that I spend time in. And I think that's usually us just like ragging on each other. But every once in a while I'll be like, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. And Kyle, you lead a team. Like, would you totally laugh me out of the room for doing that? Or Jacob, like you are a seller. Does this actually sound like something you would even consider doing, or would you laugh me out of the room? So I use some of those relationships as a sounding board to be like, I don't know, I've been alone and I'm taking walks and taking showers, and I think these things are brilliant. Like, am I crazy? Are these things I should in the shower?
Yeah, God check me, please.
Yeah,
please tell me.
I think that's why it's really important to have friends that, like, I have this saying, never be nice, never be mean. I use it in my trainings all the time, which is, people generally have an easy time with never be mean. So if someone's vulnerably coming to you saying, hey, I don't know if this is good or not, can you help me think through it? Most people are not going to be mean. I think it's harder to find people that will not be nice to you, meaning like they're so worried about hurting your feelings that they don't actually give you the truth. And I do feel like one of my strengths is my ability to sniff out people who are really good at just saying what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. And that's been invaluable for me through my whole career, from day one in sales to like where I am now, for sure.
Well, because when you show someone something and they're like, yeah, it's great. And then it's a pile of trash.
Yeah.
You're like, why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you tell me that? And then they're like, well, like, I don't know. I thought it was pretty good. Like, I didn't think it was that bad or something. And you're like, I need someone who kind of gets it. The funniest thing that you bring up about all of this is like, even just having someone who gets how frustrating getting health insurance is like that was the first thing when I first started chatting with John Benini. That was one of the first things he ever said. He was like, dude, is health insurance like the worst part about being out on your own right now? It's like, yes, because it's not like it's whatever. Even the costs of some of those things aside, whatever, it just is what it is. I've accepted that. But like the act of filling out a form on a government website, worst version of myself.
My worst version is taxes. I don't know why anybody can go out and pay whatever, $20 and make an LLC on LegalZoom without having to go through some sort of thing that's like, hey, idiot, do you know that you actually
have to maintain this thing?
Need to like pay taxes to the government? Like, I could be very smart in some aspects of my life. Man, did I get an ass whooping when it came to taxes, because I was not prepared. My accountant was not someone that had experience working with someone who was doing what I do. And it was like, I felt like the biggest idiot in the world. And that's a very humbling experience to realize like, wow, you should have known better. But when you start a company, I think you just think of the 1,000 things you need to do. Like, I need to have an invoice. I need to have a business banking account. Like, I need to have a description on my about me and my LinkedIn. And it's just like all of these things, big to small. And you're like, your mind is running. And so the really big, ugly, important stuff, like, I did not pay attention to that stuff at all in the beginning. And I say that because I know people are gonna be like, you idiot, you should have. But
they're gonna go like, me too.
People, like, I'm like, I talk to other people like, you're not alone with that. So
yeah, because the logic order is simple. I need to make money in order to pay tax on that money. So let's focus on making money. Yes. Then you make some money and you're like, this is great. And then like, wait a minute, I have to take out how much? The first thing I said to my wife, you have a good month, and you go, you know how much money you have to make any money around here? Like, it is crazy. I'm like, how do people get like super rich? Because they are just skimming right off the top. Because it's not like, this is the thing that people tell you. You see people win in public a lot. And they're like, look at all this money that I made. And then I'm like, but you have to pay a lot of tax on this. You didn't actually get any of that money. And you have operating expenses, which I know are high. Or it's like, you got 20 employees, you got whatever you got. I don't know what you got, but you're not making that much money. You're walking away making $50 off of that. And I know it. And it's tough. Like you got to make a lot of money to make any money on this side of the business. Whereas when you're an employee, they cut you a check, they take the thing, and the employer pays like a stupid amount of money. Surprisingly, didn't know, right? They pay a stupid amount of money to employ people. I'm like, why do people do this?
That's my question too. Like, people will be like, well, are you going to scale DemandJen? What are your growth goals? And I'm like, God, first of all, like, fuck off. Second of all, like,
I'm just trying to save all the dogs. Okay. Like, leave.
I know. Let me be. Like, writing emails and saving dogs. Even adding one person, now there's all sorts of new problems. And I know that's limiting to my business, but it's also not a huge part of what I want to do. Like, if I wanted to be so rich, I probably wouldn't have started this business. It's a services business. It's dependent on me. Like, it's not the right business to be super rich off the back of. I started it because I was like, this is the stuff I enjoy most out of my entire job. What if that could just be my job? And what if I could like not worry about money, know that I'm never going to be like a mega millionaire off the back of it, but not worry about money, be able to do the things that I like. That's what's in it for me. But I think there's so much pressure because then you read these posts and someone's like, I'm hiring my 15th employee. And I'm like, wait a second. Am I bad at math, or does this not make any sense? It feels like you're hiring people so you can post on LinkedIn that you're hiring people.
Yes, that's exactly what they're doing.
Okay,
That's
you're making me
exactly
feel
what they're
sane.
doing.
Thank you.
Let's just call it what it is. Like all of us get into this business at the end of the day for like the freedom part of the business. And when you start layering in all that extra complexity, you lose a lot of that freedom. You create a lot of new problems. And I think the most important question in our line of work is how do you want to grow this thing? So you talk about like adding employees, like you mentioned Sam McKenna. She has a phenomenal business. She has a bunch of employees, like they do a bunch of really great stuff. That comes with a whole variety of challenges because now you're in the people management business way less than you are in the I teach sales to people business. And it's difficult. So what's your vision? How do you want to grow?
I am so worried about not existing that I don't even think about how I'm going to grow. I think about how am I just going to maintain? Because realistically, like, is there always going to be a place for what I do? Sure. But a lot of the companies I train, not intentionally, I just think it's because a lot of tech companies are on LinkedIn. They're in the tech sector. And I think they're going to be the first type of companies to be like, how can we DIY training with some sort of AI tool, even if it's not as good, like if it's good enough, like, I just think that's the whole brain path of that entire industry. So
Oh, yeah.
I think like that, of course, presents a risk to my business. So I have options, right? Do I start to pivot outside of tech? Do I not completely give up on tech? I don't think I ever will, just because I've met way too many good leaders who don't follow that line of thinking. And so I still have some optimism there. But eventually, I think rather than try to like go the playbook route or the course route or do like cohorts of individuals, not teams, I think I would probably just completely pivot at my business altogether. Like I would just do something totally different. What I don't want to be is in a place where I'm like grabbing at straws, trying to make what I do work if it's just past my time. So I feel like I'm going to have that confrontation in the next 12 to 18 months.
You're suggesting, just make sure I'm tracking it with you. You're like, there's going to be a point when we lose the plot on sales. And you're like, and then I'm going to become a scuba instructor or something, and just like we're done here.
I think I have different. I'm not going to be a scuba instructor, but I think I could pivot. I think I have other strengths and other talents, and I think as long as I was excited about it, like I did that evangelism thing, right? I did that evangelism. I'm like, could I make something out of that? Could I make something out of the fact of like, there's a lot of younger women that get into sales and probably were up against the same challenges I was. Could I get into that? Like, so I just try to keep an open mind as to there's probably always some sort of niche that I could go into. I just really want to make the most of the time that I have while it's hot, but I'm also totally realistic that it's not going to be this way forever. It's not going to be a business that like, exists the way it does 10 years from now.
Can you please train home service providers on how to sell stuff, because that is an industry that needs
like who
help.
What are you thinking of? What trauma are you unpacking right now?
I'm just saying, look, like I bought a 104-year-old house, and you need people to help you do things. Like that industry is ripe for the taking.
But
like,
aren't there some really good ones in there though who surprise you?
Oh yeah, some of them who are like roofers, they're like really on top of the salesmanship of that in that space. But like you want a patio, it's all over. You want a fence?
Get a guy. You gotta get a multifunctional guy who just does it all. Like we've got a guy, he's the freaking best. His name's James. He'll come in and we're like, we want to renovate this. And he's like, that's a stupid idea. Why would you do it like that? You should do it like this. And I'm like, oh, you're right. Okay. And I've just now we pray at the feet of James. We're like, what do you think?
Yeah, well, everyone needs a James, but like not everyone has a James. So if you can either train James and install Jameses across the country, or seriously, the home services industry is ripe for the taking. So there's some unsolicited business advice for you. I think there's a lot of opportunity.
There we go. I'll make sure I give you credit in 5 years.
Thank you. I'll take my 10% of all revenues. I know. Well, we just need to make it harder for you to be successful because the government didn't take enough. So I'll take my share. Looking back, what is something you would have done differently?
There's so much. I'm trying to think of one thing. I would have had someone create a website that didn't look like I drew it on the back of my 4th grade notebook. Actually, getting a real website has been a massive driver for my business. Who knew? I would have started talking about the work I was doing sooner on LinkedIn. I was so petrified that people are going to be like, oh, you started your own business and you're arrogant and you're so into yourself, that I just never spoke about it. So when I realized it, I had a lot of people set up calls with me and they'd be like, I actually have no idea what you do, but I really liked this thing you wrote. And I'm like, okay, that's a problem. Like if someone has no idea and they have to come to a call to be like, what do you do? Then that's a me problem. So I feel like I figured out a better way to do it that doesn't make me feel like an egomaniac.
What's the way? What's the way?
So you may have seen this when you were doom scrolling my LinkedIn. This SKO season, I started doing this thing where after I did an SKO or a workshop, oftentimes they'd want to take a picture or they would have a picture and they would send to me. I would post the picture. And then instead of talking about myself, I just did this today. I would talk about something that happened in the workshop that I thought was really cool that they did. So I was shining the praise on someone else, which got me out of my I don't want to sound like an egomaniac, but I was still showing people, okay, Jen was at a workshop helping the team do this. So it was like a happy medium between not talking about it at all and then just being like, I'm the world's leading sales trainer, which makes me want to barf.
We call this market the proof.
Yeah.
This is such a fantastic example of this. Like, how do you show people that you're competent? And then instead of making it all about you, you just celebrate their success. Like,
there you go.
I love it. Way better than Slack screenshots. Like, you're like, hey, I was at a place. I left my house. Check it out.
Hey, got on a plane today. I would have gotten a different accountant. I would have learned more about taxes. I would have hired someone to help me with invoicing sooner, just wrecking it during my busy season. I mean, I could go on for an hour of things I would do different. There's just way too many of them. I would also have charged more. I'm sure you hear a lot of people say that. I totally undervalued my offer. And the thing that made me change it was I quoted my price and someone was like, I've talked to 12 providers and you are the lowest by 30%. Like it's not even close. And I know I shouldn't tell you that, but I kind of feel an obligation because I think you just don't know. There's so many things. I think you just you get petrified thinking of all the things you don't know. You have to mess it up and then you have an appreciation for why it matters and then you fix it and then you keep it moving. Yeah.
Well, you're like, I have 100% close rate. This is crazy.
I'm a great closer.
And then you're like, oh, people say yes too fast. You're like, I definitely didn't charge. There's no chance. You're like, that's crazy that they have all these keynoters here. It's like, look at that. They have all these names. I feel you on the price thing. I think everyone I know struggles with pricing, no matter how long they've been doing this, because no matter how much you know about what other people charge, there's still a story you tell yourself about, is this worth that? Can I get more? How do I package it? How do I pitch it? How do I do all the things to make it worth more, to make it worth that? There's so much insecurity we all have around price, no matter what level of success you help your clients achieve too. This makes a massive difference for people.
I was really lucky. I'll go back to Sam. When I went off my own, I told you Sam was like, hey, I'm going to take you to dinner. And Sam sat me down. She's like, I'm going to tell you a few mistakes that you're going to make. And I'm going to tell you before you make them. One was and I didn't know any of this stuff. She's like, on your contracts, when you're speaking at a big organization, you always do first class travel, business class travel. And I was like, I can't ask for that. That's expensive. She's like, no, they have separate budgets for it. It is expected. If you come in and you don't have that, you kind of look like amateur hour. And I was like, never knew that. I was flying back and forth to San Francisco, sitting at the back of the plane. She told me, I told her, she's like, what are you charging? And I told her, and she's like, what did you base it on? I was like, well, my business is new. And she's like, stop. You have been selling for 18 years. You are totally discounting your experience in doing the job you are teaching. You are thinking about the length of time you've been training, not the length of time you've been doing. And it's again, you just need someone to be punch you in the face, stop it. Don't do that stuff.
I had a friend share that exact story where someone's like, well, your business is new, so we would like to pay X. And it's some percentage lower than what their rate was. And it's to your exact point, I can't discount the experience and the skills just because the LLC is not as old as you'd like. Should I go back in time and change that? What do you want from this?
Yeah, kind of out of my control.
Yeah, so I love it. Hey, look, I appreciate you being radically candid about it because, one, it seems super easy for everybody because when you doom scroll LinkedIn, that's kind of the world that we all live in. But And not enough people talk about what the reality of like all the little is. It's like all the little shit that adds up over time. So I appreciate that.
I appreciate you having me on because I've actually never been on a podcast to talk about starting my own business.
Happy to provide. Jen, let's end here. What is next for you? What is next for DemandJen as a business? Like, what do you want to build that you haven't built yet?
Gosh, this is probably a conversation I should think more about. What's immediately next for me, and one of my goals this year is, in addition to doing like the team workshops that I do for companies, is try to get on more stages, like conference stages, which has been hard because I think a lot of conferences, particularly in SaaS, are interested in like the CXO roles, which I get. Like you have to have a good role and work at a good company. But I've got one in Sweden next month. I've got one for user evidence in Jackson Hole, which is where I got married. I got invited to speak at Drive, and I think there's one other one. So I'm really getting excited about the fact that like I'm starting to break in there, but I would love to be on more stages at conferences. I just think that would be a new and different challenge and one that I would enjoy. So maybe that's my next goal.
Right on. I love it, Jen. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story with me. I know for a fact more people feel seen because of it. And so for that, I thank you. Hey, it's Nick. Thanks for listening. If you want to take part in amazing conversations like these, then you need to check out Full Stack Solopreneur, where you'll get access to bi-weekly group coaching clinics, guest mini courses from legendary solopreneurs like Morgan Ingram and Max Trailer, and so much more. You can join right now at fullstacksolo.com. That's fullstack, SOLO.com.